math and science are subjects that Americans have loved to hate. It's just something they've not
They've
warmed
loved
up
to
to
hate. They're
ever.
really-
But another point is if we talked about 1934, if you go up to 1941, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor.
Right.
Millions of men and women sign up to be inducted in the armed services. And the Department of Defense, War at that time it was called, had a big problem because the intellectual capabilities, both in math and science and others, other areas, were not up to snuff. So they had to create a thing called the Army General Classification Test, and about 45–50% of those Americans were rated as having intellects of 8 or 9-year-olds, and that's only 70 years ago.
That's terrifying.
It is.
I bet most people aren't aware of that.
No, I wasn't certainly when I looked at it, and then if you go forward through the book, there's other iterations. In 1945, when the war ended, President Roosevelt instructed Vannevar Bush, who's a Massachusetts over at MIT, to do a recap of all the things that we learned in science in the war. And he came out with this report called Science, the Endless Frontier, which if it sounds a little bit like Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek, it is. But what he found was the president, to this report, said in 1945, 60%, 60% of American high school kids never finished high school. And that's not too long ago. So to some extent, I'm under the, not impression, but just researching the book, is that even education has not been, we talk it, we talk the talk, but I don't know if as a country we walk the walk.
Well, it sounds like, we make it sound like it's a current issue, but it sounds like it's a deeply ingrained cultural attribute.
Well, yes, it is. I mean, there's just, that's one of the things I love most about writing the book. I was trying to connect the dots as to why American kids are being measured 25th in math and science all around the world right now in 2013. And it wasn't certainly a genetics issue. So is there anything else going on here? And one scenario that I found that I was fascinated with was in 1946. It was the first year of baby boomers. Men and women come home from the war, start a family. And they did. And for the next 10, 15 years, every year, 2 million extra kids showed up.
That's a lot of
at
kids just
schools.
pouring into the
I mean,
system.
think about what happened here at the Cape. I'm sure it was on a much lower scale. But what happened was that prior to the war, to become a teacher in America, you had went through a massive certification exam. And after the war, these kids started showing up in 52. There was a shortage of teachers. We needed 130,000 extra teachers. So people who
in 1 year, 130,000
well, over the
teachers?
time.